Welcome back to Afternoon Live. Our next guest's new memoir details his journey as a guitarist working with music legends like Paul McCartney and Carly Simon. We welcome to Afternoon Live the author of Behind, autobiography of a musical shapeshifter. Jimmy Ryan is with us today. Jimmy, such a pleasure to have you on the show. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you. Pleasure to be here.
Oh, you're already showing off in your backdrop there. All those albums behind you. So cool. You know, you have quite the history here in music. What inspired you to, at this moment, sit down and actually write an autobiography?
You know, it was just my son. He loves my stories. He works at Atlantic Records, and he's a musician himself, and his job is to coordinate the record company to the artist that he represents, and he's the guy in between that makes sure the records get out at the right time, the publicity. Anyway, we always hang out, and he tells me stories about what's going on in his world, and I tell him stories about what has gone on in my world in the past. And one night he just stopped me and said, "Dad, you got to write a book." And I said, write a book? I'm the guy who failed English in college. What are you talking about? I didn't really. I just didn't do very well. I figured I already spoke English. Why did I need to take it? But anyway, I wrote one story, and I kind of passed around to friends and family, and they said, "Wow, this is really funny, man. This is great." And I thought, what have I got to lose? The pandemic has really, I was touring for 10 years with a band called the Hitmen, and the pandemic basically killed all our gigs. They just went away. And I said, well, I certainly have the time, no excuse there. So sat down in front of the computer and started typing for a year and a half.
I can only, these stories are incredible throughout the book that you have. I mean, I can only imagine it took that long to kind of pen it all out. Share with people at the beginning, I mean, 13 years old, how you got started in the music industry.
It was just a love of music, and oh my God, look at that picture. I guess I sent that to you. That's me at about 15, I think. Yeah, I just loved music from the very get-go. Since 4 years old, when I kind of walked up to our family piano and started like tinkering around with it. But there was a difference. I wasn't a fan. I didn't want to sit and listen to music. I wanted to be the music. I wanted to be like Elvis Presley and Buddy Holly and Chuck Berry. So I took up guitar because that was the popular instrument at the time. And I took it up like a monster. I just, every day I'd come home from school and I'd practice and probably should have done more homework. But in the end, it did work out. I just love music. Still do to this day. I still listen to really modern music. I'm not stuck in the old days of my career. Fortunately I have a son in the business, so I get, all the new stuff like 100 Gex. That's one of the crazy new bands that he represents. You can look them up. They're pretty funny. Well,
you have so many relationships in music that you've had. Carly Simon, I mean, obviously a big one. She's your top endorsement in that back of that book. And you see it throughout, your love for each other throughout this book. And, this started even before you were actually with her, right? In the band with her performing.
That is true. We were friends way before she had gotten her first record deal. I had been in a band called the Critters. We had a couple of hits, Younger Girl, Mr. Dinely Said, and Don't Let the Rain Fall Down on Me. And our last producer was a friend of mine. There they are, there's the Critters. Was a man named Dan Armstrong. And while we were doing the record, he kind of said, "Do you mind if my girlfriend comes over and listens to you guys?" And I said, "Sure, bring her in." And he brought her in, and her name was Carly Simon. At that point, I think she had made a record with her sister, but it was just folk music. She didn't have a big hit. When the Critters broke up, I took a job in his guitar store. He had a guitar store, and Carly and I got to be very good friends. And eventually we started doing jingles together, believe it or not. She had a connection in the advertising business, and she would bring me in and say, "Hey, come on, we're going to go sing about toilet paper today." I said, "Okay." Sounds like fun. I've done worse things for a living. So at that point, I guess about 6 months after I left the store, because I was starting to get a lot of jingle work on my own. For anybody who doesn't know, jingles are musical ads that you immediately dive for the remote to get rid of.
No, you sing them all day long in your head. That's what they are.
Yeah, they go around. Yeah, the earworms that go around in your head that you really don't want to be there. Anyway, I was responsible for some of those. I apologize. But anyway, I was getting work as a jingle producer, writer, and singer, and she had left my boss. They had broken up, and she called me one day and said, "Hey, I got myself a record deal." And I said, "Wow, that's fantastic! No kidding." She says, "Well, I want you to come in and play my album." I said, "Well, works for me. Beats the hell out of jingles." So we went in and did her first album together, and then she got pressure from her record company to tour. So she said, "Can you put a band together for me?" Which I did. I had plenty of friends in the business, and 21 years later, you know, I worked with her for 21 years. That's me with my really weird haircut and glasses.
I love it. I love it. So in the times, you know, you're known for one of the most iconic guitar solos of all time with "You're So Vain." I mean, were you behind that too in the song as far as when it was recorded?
Oh, of course. Yeah, I was her guitar player for most of her hits. I played all the guitars on that. I did some background vocals on some of the cuts, but definitely virtually everything on that album. And that was the album where I got to meet Paul McCartney. I think I sent you yeah, there you go. I'm the guy with the weird hair again on the right.
What was that like?
Paul.
I mean, what was
Right
that like to meet Paul McCartney and work with him?
It was an incredible surprise. We were trying to do a backup vocals to a song called Night Owl, a James Taylor song, and it wasn't going well. Our producer, Richard Perry, just kept saying, "Guys, do it again. I'm not hearing it. It's just, you can do better than this." So we tried and we tried, and at one point, he just stopped. We didn't hear him, and we looked at each other and said, "Oh, maybe he likes it. Wonder what's going on." Within a couple of seconds, I look around the baffle and I say, "Oh, he's talking to somebody in there." Then somebody leans in the control room, presses the little button and says, "You guys having a bit of trouble in there? Would you like a little bit of help?" And I said to Carly, I said, "Dear God in heaven, that was Paul McCartney." She looks at me, "Are you kidding me?" And Paul waltzes out and says, "Yeah, I think I've got some ideas for you, maybe." You know, and he kind of stands up in the middle. He says, "Hey, you sing this, Jimmy, you sing this, Carly." And he gave us vocal parts, and we did them, and they were fantastic. They were exactly what the record needed. And, you know, of course you would expect them to be fantastic. He's had a couple of hit records in his day.
Mm-hmm. Just a couple.
Yeah, and he knows his way around the studio. So, yeah. Oh, another thing. People often ask me, what is Paul McCartney like? And this is a great example. He came to another session. It was quite a bit later, maybe a month later. And in the room was Mick Jagger, Paul McCartney, Lowell George from Little Feat, Robbie Robertson from the band. This is who, you know, who shows up at Carly Simon sessions. And when Paul walked in, our producer, Richard Perry, started to introduce him around. And he went over me. He just went right past and introduced me to somebody else. And I'm standing there, what am I, chopped liver here? What the hell? So Paul walks over to me, he says, "I'm sorry, he has bad manners. I'm Paul, nice to meet you." And I said, "Paul, thank you so much. I really appreciate that. We did meet on a session for Night Out." He says, "Oh, yeah, of course, I remember."
Oh,
nicest guy in the world.
Oh, Jimmy, we're out of time, but you're so full of so many good stories. I want to let people know about your book again because that is full of them, and it's really cool to read. Thank you so much for joining us, and there it is, Behind Autobiography of a Musical Shapeshifter. We'll have more information about it and Jimmy on our website at KATU.com, and don't go away. We'll be right back with more Afternoon Live right after this.